Whoop is one of the most successful companies today. In the wearable space, or in any space really, they are a massive company doing extremely well. In fact, I even have one. So how did they become so successful? What did they do right? And why should you care? G'day. A whoop is a loud cry of joy or excitement, at least as defined by the English dictionary. But we're not going to talk about the word whoop. We're going to talk about this whoop, specifically the wearable whoop, which is a health and fitness tracker. As of April 2024, they were valued at $3.6 billion. Now, I'd imagine a few investors would give a loud whoop at that. So why have they been so successful? This company looks like a hardware company, but they say they're a data and software company. So what is it that makes them so successful? We're going to get into that right now. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you would know that there is a thing called a smartwatch. Apple produced them, many other companies do. So what makes Whoop so different to, say, a smartwatch? Well, there's three main elements to this. The first one being focus. So Whoop is very much focused on recovery, strain, and sleep. And so as opposed to, say, an Apple or a Fitwatch or some other smartwatch, which has a more broad appeal, many communications features and so on. The design of the Whoop, very, very slim and light, doesn't have a screen, so you can't actually read anything for it, and it's focused on using the app and just collecting the data. This allows you to actually wear the device either on your wrist or in parts of your clothing. And then the third point would be its business model. They only offer this as a subscription. $24, $29 a month, I think, when I did it. Whereas you can do a subscription with Apple, but you can also buy it outright. So three main differences I feel from what Whoop does compared to, say, many of the smartwatch companies out there. Apple Watch can vary from $20 to $66 a month, or you can spend $800 outright. So over a 5-year period, it can be ranged from $1,200 to nearly $4,000. Now, a Whoop is $20 a month, and over 5 years, that's $1,200. And then if you add a band, a couple of replacement bands, you're looking at about $1,275. So it's definitely down at the low end of the smartwatches you would get from Apple. I really like the fact that it has a means of charging it while it's on the wrist. It's actually a clip-on device that actually charges the device whilst you're still moving around, and then you put that device back on the charger. And so what attracted me to Whoop, which is one of the key things, was their strong focus on sleep, the fact that I could wear it 24/7 and track my health and fitness throughout the day, 24/7, with never having to take it off. So the key question here is, does it work? Well, I've been using it for almost a year now to track my sleep, and I wouldn't say it's always 100% accurate. Sometimes I feel that I've been awake and it hasn't recorded that. Now, it uses heart rate to measure your sleep. So that's not sleep directly measured. There are other tools for that. A thing called a PSG or polysomnograph would do it, would actually measure sleep. I'm not wearing one of those. I don't think many people would want to wear one of those. I think it has to be attached to the skull. This is just measuring heart rate. So it's a step away from true sleep, but I think it's a pretty close correlation. I would say this probably needs more work to be 100% accurate, but it's definitely giving you a good idea about sleep. Now, I know when I sleep poorly, I feel bad, and that's correlated with the what the Whoop data says. I try to always have 100% and try to stretch that out as much as possible. So that motivates me to try to get to bed early. And the app tells you that it's time, you should be getting to bed and getting your rest. So those things are helping to support my good behaviors. So I think the Whoop is working very well for me. The other pillars, strain and recovery, there's three pillars to the way they've structured their philosophy around a fitness app, and that's sleep, recovery and strain. I don't tend to use them so much, but then again, I'm not really trying to be an athlete. I'm trying to improve my sleep. Sometimes I notice that if I'm active on a certain day, I'll have more strain and less recovery. And other days, if I'm less active, I've got more recovery and less strain. So it does correlate with that, but I don't use that in any meaningful way. So where does Whoop use AI? Well, they use it in two main ways. One is to analyze the data So whenever you're tracking your data, it's backhauled through your phone to their database where AI runs to analyze the data. And the second way they use it is to personalize insights and make recommendations. So the first one is obviously the sleep stage detection. So they've done a lot of work over the years to get massive amounts of data to correlate heart rate with sleep and the different stages of sleep, including REM and deep sleep and light sleep and being awake. They're getting pretty good at that. I would say that works fairly well. I have a good understanding of my REM and my deep versus my light, although sometimes the difference between light and awake is not that well determined. The second one is what they call heart rate variability analysis. Now, a good measure of overall fitness is your higher heart rate variability, and that's how much your heart rate varies throughout the day. The higher it varies throughout the day, the better your health. So they track that as a score for health. Of course, it changes as you get older. Heart rate variability tends to go down, but as a measure of overall fitness for your age, heart rate variability is a good score. Now, I do look at the heart rate variability, but I don't really know what it means. I just know whether it's going up or down. Strain calculation, so it's another one of their pillars, is strain, and they look at your heart rate and determine how much work you're doing. I would say that's quite accurate because as you have elevated heart rates, it's very easy to measure and very easy to correlate strain with your workouts. Anomaly detection, so if there's something unusual going on as a precursor to a health problem, and they have that built in. Haven't used that, haven't been aware of that. And then the final one I want to discuss is the personalized data and recommendation. This is a fairly new feature which I haven't used a lot, but it gives you recommendations about how you can change your behaviors to improve your health as an athlete or just to improve your performance daily. So how successful are Whoop? Well, their last raise was $200 million. So they're able to track investment fairly easily, and they have 125 million customers. They're valued at $3.6 billion. I would say they are very, very successful. In fact, if you want some big names, there are some big sports names they are associated with, including Tiger Woods, Cristiano Ronaldo, Patrick Mahomes, the NRL footballer. So they're able to attract this talent, which, is a virtuous cycle. So I would say extremely successful company. So what is the competitive landscape and how are they able to compete? I mean, there's companies like Apple. Apple is considered to be one of the biggest companies in the world, and they're very interested in the smartwatch technology and that smartwatch market. How are they able to place themselves in that market? Fitbit, which is now owned by Google, is another huge player. Garmin, another huge player in fitness. In fact, Garmin has its biggest arm, its biggest and most successful division of its company is in the fitness and wearables technology. We've got Samsung, another huge mobile phone player, Huawei, the Chinese company, and Xiaomi. These, you couldn't really get companies of a higher standing that this little company, which at least it was a little company, was competing in. So what were their secrets to success? So fundamentally, why is it that Whoop has become so successful? What have they done that we could perhaps replicate and learn from? Well, the first one might be a focus on a specific niche. They did a really good job of just saying, okay, we're just going to focus in on athletes and we're going to make this device so suitable for them. And one of the things that stands out for me is just how compact it is, how the band actually goes across the electronics and protects it, how light it is, how long it can last, how much it collects data. In fact, you're collecting hundreds of data points every second. So an enormous amount of data is being collected compared to, say, an Apple smartwatch, which much less data is being captured. They have developed a data-driven approach. In fact, they say they are not a hardware company, they're a data and software company. So they're collecting a lot of data and running a lot of analytics on that. So their data-driven approach definitely helps them and gives them the information they need to make good decisions. They use a subscription model, which is around about $20 a month. And that means it's very easy to get in. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on the device. You just need to sign up for a subscription, making the barriers to entry quite low. They have a strong community and brand building. So some of the stuff we mentioned earlier, including those big names like Tiger Woods, Patrick Mahomes, Cristiano Ronaldo, they attract people, they attract athletes, they attract people who want to mimic their behavior, who want to be associated with them. They've done a really good job of getting it out to other key influencers, and this is where I first learned about Whoop, was that some of the influencers that I follow were wearing a Whoop. Emphasis on recovery. So they have 3 pillars in the way they measure health. There's the sleep, which is what I'm interested in. There's the strain, which I'd imagine anyone who's working out wants to measure. And then there's the recovery, and they say focusing on recovery. So alerting people that if they're overtraining, they're actually not helping their advancement towards high health, they're actually damaging it. So forcing that recovery awareness is something that they're really focused on, and was part of the fundamental things that they got onto very, very early in the story of this company. An effective marketing and social media presence. You have to look at their website to see how nicely laid out their shop is. There's a picture of Patrick Mahomes right on the front of the landing page above the fold. How beautifully presented all of that is, and how much they promote themselves in the digital realm to be successful. Now, Hawkeye and Whoop have similar characteristics. Obviously, Whoop is enormously successful and Hawkeye is just starting out, but they're similar because they both need sleek hardware in order to be successful in the marketplace. For Whoop, it's a wearable wristband. They've done a lot of work to make this small and light with a lot of data collecting capability and a long battery life. Hawkeye needs to do the same. We're starting in the bike industry. We'll also be moving to wearables, and there we need small, sleek hardware that has long battery life. But fundamentally, both companies are software, data, and AI companies. For Whoop, it's software to run and collect the data. It's AI for the analytics. And the same is true for Hawkeye. We're collecting a lot of data. We're needing software to do that, and we could be running AI in order to process and get meaning out of that. Hawkeye, we believe, is a great simile for Whoop. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the description. We love to engage with our audience. If you have any ideas for videos that you'd like us to make, please drop them in the description too, because we love to hear your suggestions. And I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.